Bright suns and rising moons, fellow droids. Welcome to Not the Droids podcast. I'm Danny.
And I'm Mary, and today we are starting The Acolyte, episode 1, titled Lost Found. When did it come out?
June 4th, 2024. So it hasn't even been a year since it released.
I know. I remember when it was releasing, I was like very excited, but I think personally I was super busy and I just like couldn't watch another series. And so
hmm
it's always been on my list, so I was really excited
Yeah, I didn't
to
watch
watch it.
this one as it aired, but I watched it before D23. It hadn't been canceled yet at that point because there's no season 2 at this point. They have not uncanceled it. But I didn't want to go to D23 because I knew there was such a Star Wars presence and be
Yeah.
spoiled anything. So I like binged it. And I'm gonna say this right now because I told you this when we were talking about getting ready to do it. Do not binge this series until you've watched already. It was information overload and it was like too much for my brain to handle when I binged it. So now I'm taking it one episode at a time and like on different days, and I'm liking this approach better, even though we're only at episode one.
Yeah, I mean, I watched episode 1, and like I said, I didn't. So I'd only ever like seen the news stories, but I never saw any real spoilers for the series. And I watched it and I was like, I can see where it's information overload because like we're 100 years before, everything is so different
Yes.
that I'm used to seeing. And I think it's because like this is still a time where there's peace in the galaxy. And so that's where I was just like really trying to lock in and understand like everything because I feel like everything that they're saying is very important
Yes. And
to the
it's all new
story.
characters.
Yes.
Right? All these new characters you don't, even though you haven't seen all of Star Wars, you pick up Star Wars from pop culture, from just being around people, from being around me, let's be honest. Like it just
Yeah.
happens.
No, but it was cool. I really liked the beginning of it. I thought that I love Carrie Ann Moss and I love Trinity from The Matrix. And I was like, oh, yay, she's in the show. How exciting. But I will say that fight scene, honestly, that fight scene is probably one of the best or coolest fight scenes I have seen in Star Wars in all the stuff that I have watched so far.
What, our young Jedi didn't live up to your Star Wars fight scenes?
No, but I mean, just like I've also like
Fighting.
actually at this point seen like The Mandalorian and
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and the movies, and I don't remember a fight scene being like so well choreographed.
I will say for this series, the choreography in this series is out there. It's so good. I can't wait till you see like more of it. We're only on episode one.
I know. And that's where I'm just kind of like, I like the way they did that, in that, like, they're using the force and they're fighting. And it's like very much, honestly, it was giving a little bit of Trinity from the Matrix. It really was.
And I also
Um,
had, and I think this is because of where we are at. So the week we're recording this is the week that Onyx Storm comes out. And with her and all her blades, I'm like, oh, it's Violet and all her blades. Because you don't really
right.
see a lot of characters with like a multiple blades. So it just, because I'm rereading right now, that's what popped into my head.
I'm laughing because I'm reading it and I still do not make that correlation.
It's so rare like that you like actually like see someone who has like multiple blades and they're just I mean you have like Daredevil and stuff like that. Like that's a little
But like
different.
the way that they organize those fights, and like you believe that she's an expert at those little
Yes.
daggers. Like
Yes.
she handles them well. She's using, I love how they called her like an unidentified force user. It's like it's a UFU, guys. Uh,
UFU.
um, but I do like that. And I was like, that poor barkeep is the reason that she died. She got distracted to save his life. And I feel like
Master Indara, which we
Master
learned after the
Indara,
fact.
I feel like we learn later that that person was May,
Yeah.
but I feel like she knew that. She knew that that's the reason she would get distracted and could kill her. But yeah, it was very interesting.
But then we switch screens, and at this point, we don't realize this to OSHA.
So here's the thing. I know you say at this point we don't realize this, but as the scene progresses, I realized it was like it's the same
Yeah, we
actress,
knew.
no,
We
right?
knew it
Like
was, we know it's a
her
different
hair is
person.
different, it's a different personality. And so like for a hot second, I was like, "Oh, this is her." And then the second she looked at her little droid and just went, "Pip." And I was like, "That's not her. There's no way that's the same person."
What was
Because
it
I
that she
first
said to Pip? Like that it was like too early for this, or like,
yeah, it's like way too early for this. But that's where I was just like, I actually at first thought maybe it was a flashback because
ah,
her hair was different and like she looks different. But then as they kept going, I was like, no, this is definitely a completely different person.
yes.
So like I clocked that from the beginning. I do love like the little droid that's a handheld droid.
Pip, and then Pip's head comes off. You see later on as like a
Yeah.
screwdriver.
I like that it's like it's like the what does she call like a mech?
Yeah.
Um but like I like that she was using Pip for like all of her repairs and stuff, but like Pip has such a personality too. And
Hmm.
so I was just like, oh, that's so cute. Um, and I will say, when we see the Jedi, I was like, their outfits are so clean. I was like, the outfits are so sick. And I don't know why, like maybe it's because like all the movies are like further on where they do
But they're
encounter
battling
trouble.
regularly.
Yeah, so they're battling regularly, so they get dirty more often. But like the glistening white of their cloaks and their outfits with that mustard yellow,
So we
I
have
was like,
Yord is one of the Jedi here that we meet.
yeah, and his Padawan.
So it's Yord Fandar and his Padawan learner, Tassie Loa.
So, but that's why it's like even the way she interacted with him, I was like, she's definitely not the person that killed her because she was so like jokey and all of that stuff. And so like I like the way that that's how they like set up her backstory of how she came to where she is now.
But you also realize that she has met Yord. Like
Oh,
they
she
know
knows
each
him
other,
well.
but doesn't know his Padawan learner.
Yeah. Well, I just assumed because they say she left the order 6 years before. So
Hmm.
like she only knew him when he was a Padawan.
Yes.
But that's where it's like it's interesting to learn that she was a part of the order and she left voluntarily. So like that's where I thought it was like a really clever way of doing that kind of lore drop.
Yeah, and well, and they find kind of insinuate that like she left voluntarily, but not voluntarily. It almost felt like
Yeah, I don't know. I
it's
feel like
later
something,
on when they're talking to Soul,
yeah,
and it almost feels like we're like, okay, she said it was voluntarily, but now it feels like
there
there
was
was
something.
there's something else. Yeah.
But you also see her, so like when she gets on that, when she's trying to escape the prison transport that's about to crash, like she is struggling
Yeah.
to
So
use the force.
yes, very much so. And prisoner transport that is flown by droids.
Was such a bad idea. Why would you put someone who clearly has is like half droid or has some sort of electronic in his head like that? Like, why wouldn't you think?
See, I didn't like question that. I questioned. So they're on this prison ship talking to the people cell block. They don't even know her. And they're just like, we're about to escape. Want to join us?
I know. Well, I
I'm
think they
like,
assume she's a Jedi killer
I'm like,
at
y'all,
that
I'm not
point.
surprised you're captured if this is how your plans work.
He also very easily got recaptured, if you saw. So I'm
Yes,
not
they all got
surprised.
recaptured.
But I find that that whole scene was also very telling, where she's like, I trust in the Jedi. Like, even though she's been arrested for murder, she still thinks that like they will find the truth and find her innocent, even though they're
Yes.
sending her to prison, like to the point where she doesn't want to escape. And you see like some of that goodness still in her, where she couldn't leave the prisoner who was tripping off of that weird parasite. Ugh, that movie is the worst, and that is what that reminded me of. And I was like, I can't. Um, the fact that he literally came out of his psychotic state and was like, I'm out,
Yeah.
and left her on the
He's
ship.
like, I left her when she saved me. Oops.
I know. My bad. But yeah, I don't know. I liked coming back to Coruscant and seeing what's his name? Master Soul teaching the younglings. And I like that the one that was like, I see fire, and you could see the alarm in his face where he was
Yeah.
like, oop. I was like, oh, that's a bad sign.
Was that the flashback?
No, it wasn't a flashback. It was just when he was teaching the new younglings and he was asking them to like connect to the force and
Okay,
say what they
yeah.
saw. And like some of them were like, life and this, and one of them said fire.
I'm
And
like,
he was like,
this is not.
yes, fire is also part of like the cycle of life. So I
Mhm.
guess you're right. Um, but yeah, but seeing him kind of react to the fact that they think that Osha is the one that killed Master Indara, it's like he's like, why would she do that? Like
Yeah.
she wouldn't.
Like he knew it didn't make sense
Yeah.
because they rescued her.
Yeah, so that's where you get more of the backstory where you get slowly get pieces, but essentially what seems like happened is that her sister accidentally used the force to start a fire. And they tried to save them, but only managed to save Osha, and her rest of the family died in the fire.
Yes.
And that's why
So-
he's like very much intense
Well,
about the
and
fact that,
OSHA was Soul's Padawan learner.
yeah, well, he took her on when she was 8. So,
Yeah.
like,
Which we know in Star Wars lore that an older kid is not always welcome into Jedi training.
yeah, so that's what they talk about it, right? Like, so they're just like, usually they don't bring someone, especially after a tragedy like that,
Yes.
because it's very hard
Yeah, so
to
we've
let go
gotten
of their
OSHA's
attachment.
backstory very quickly.
Yeah, that's why I was like, they did a good job of info dumping that
Yes.
without making it feel overwhelming. Like
Yes,
we
I
got it in
agree.
pieces throughout the episode. Um, I the dream sequence where she realizes that her twin sister is in fact not dead
Mm-hmm.
is just like how? Because then like you see Master Soul be like, no, I saw her burn alive. Like,
Yeah.
and that's where it's like this whole thing kind of kicks off and is very interesting.
Yes. And then
Um,
we have some other characters that come into play.
yes.
Jackie Lon, who is another Padawan learner.
Master Soul's current
Yes.
Padawan learner.
Does she look familiar to you or sound familiar to you?
She sounds so familiar, and I enjoy her personality a lot. Like that scene where they come up on Yord, who is like steaming, which also, you know how much I love the logistics of these shows. So
Mm-hmm.
coming up on him while he's actively steaming his Jedi uniform is
Yes. So
hilarious.
it's so funny. And when she's just like, Yord, put your clothes on.
Like, put your clothes on, dude. Who is she?
Did you see the movie Wolverine?
Yes.
And Hugh Jackman as Wolverine finds this little girl. She's a little
It's
girl.
That's the little girl? That's awesome. I was like, she was just so funny and precocious. I love it. But
If
again,
you like next episode, look at her and you'll go, huh, yeah, I see it.
I liked her personality. Um, Yord, I'm kind of 50-50 on because he knows Osha. So like the fact that he's still just like, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know if I believe that you did it, but like there's
This is
so
what I'm
much proof.
supposed to do right now. So,
Yeah. And but that's where I still like love the idea that the Jedi like steam their outfits to get them to look so crisp. Because like I said, like their outfits look so crisp and so
they do.
clean. And just the idea of them running into him, steaming his so that it's so perfection, I just think it's funny.
So then back to Osha. She is crash landed on the planet
It starts
Carlac.
with a C. Karlak,
Carlac.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
I'm surprised she made it completely unscathed. Though I love that Pip was panicking and she's like, you're fine, Pip, like you're fine. It's okay.
good.
Um, you're good, you're good, you're good. And then she has like that like scary movie moment where like there's like a ghost
Yeah.
child out of nowhere. And I was
Yeah.
like, please don't, let's not do this creepy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And
let's not
she,
do this creepy thing.
but now we're gonna follow the creepy thing.
Well, I mean, that's how she like figures out that connection to May, and I
Yes.
don't know that that's intentional on May's part. Like, did she reach out to Osha, or is it just like the force is connecting them and making her realize?
I think she was actually there.
Huh?
Not as a child, but like
No, 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 like in spirit, like she was in Osha's mind.
I don't think it's like an in spirit thing. I think May was like there projecting into Osha's mind, like follow me, but it's like adult her, but projecting like the
Yeah,
memories
of what
into
she
her
looked
brain,
like.
even though she was actually there. Because that's when she like also sees May.
Yeah, and they like go back to their home, is
Yes.
essentially what that is, right? So I kind of like it.
It's Ueda, I believe is the name. No, that's where they were in the beginning of the show.
That's where they're in the beginning. I
Wait,
don't
I don't.
remember.
She said it, and I didn't write it
Yeah, I
down.
don't remember. Oh, Brendock.
So,
Brendock is the name of the planet. So yeah, so I like that how they did that because then she can like definitively when they came for her and they followed her and she said it and he believed her right
well, and
away.
also we know that Soul was there, so he knows
Yeah.
she's not making up some story about some long lost sibling. No, he's met both the kids.
But that's why like in the one scene he was just like no, she's dead. And you can kind of see in his face that he's like no, she's dead. Like she's dead. And then he's like but is she dead?
Yeah,
Because
they
that would
like this,
make more
but it was
sense.
also like this is the only thing that makes sense, and like the first thing
Yeah,
he says is, um, get off the edge. And I don't
yeah,
think it was a threatening way. It was a, I know what's about to happen here.
you're
And we
about to
see
fall.
that she just falls and he
Yeah,
force stops her.
saves her.
But that
You know,
was
he
like cool
used,
because she's like vertical.
yeah, it was, well, like horizontal, I guess, to their
Oh
verdict.
yeah, horizontal. Yeah, not
She was
vertical.
perpendicular to the cliff.
Yes.
No, I think that was good. And I like how his Padawan is like holding the cuffs and he's like, no, no, put
Yeah, we
those
don't
away.
we're okay.
She's not gonna be a runner. Like, it's fine. Um, But that's where it's like, and then the final scene, like the voiceover is so interesting. And like I know the actor who's playing that character, right? Like I've seen that. But like
Oh, you've
that
seen
voice,
him, really?
well, because you know, that I knew that was the reason I wanted to watch the show in the beginning. Because I love that actor. But I am
Manny
so
Jacinto.
yes, I don't know if you used to watch The Good Place, but I love The Good Place, and he's my favorite character in it.
Ah.
That's why when he was doing the show, I actually was very excited for him because I was like, "Oh my God, look at you! Grew up in acting. What a
He was
role!"
at D23,
Oh my
which was
God,
one of the
that's
reasons like, oh, I have to watch the show because if he's there, maybe we're getting a
yeah. Did you hear that he found out that the show was canceled on his birthday? Yeah. That's why I was just like, but
at the
on
end of
it,
the when we finish the season, we will
we'll talk
discuss
about that more.
that.
But I like how like ominous it feels because like I also like in terms of the costuming between May and Osha, it's
Mhm.
like very, very
Can
different.
we talk about that cloak May is wearing on that opening
I
scene?
love it
I love it.
so
It's very
much.
reminiscent of Agatha All Along
I also haven't
or
seen that
Agatha
yet, but
Harkness,
yes.
like
Yeah,
her
that
color
kind of
tones.
big.
But it's gorgeous.
Well, I kind of like that she's like wearing these like deep, rich colors
Yes.
And like Osha is just in like a mechanic's outfit,
Yes.
right? Like there's a huge juxtaposition, but that mechanic's outfit is still lighter colors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then like the ominous like voice over about how like about the Jedi and this and that. And I was like, what is going on?
In the dark
But
corners of the world.
I was like, it was like a lot of villain
Acolyte.
expo. I know the acolyte. It
It
was
was just like it was an interesting choice like to end it that way because you're just like, let's get the title in here and explain exactly what an acolyte
what
is.
an acolyte is. Um, but yeah, but that's where I was just like, and then you see the lightsaber go red. I actually, during the fight, I thought May was gonna take the lightsaber at the end.
I was like watching the shot of the lightsaber. I'm like, this is a great shot. And I was like, oh, she's gonna just leave it there? Okay.
I know, that's why I was like, she didn't take it. Like I thought she was angling to take it
Well,
earlier.
I think based on what we've known, she is not a fan of the Jedi and she doesn't want anything to do with them
Yeah, so
besides
that's
killing
where
them.
it's just like interesting because they say she's an assassin, but like
No
I
trophies.
don't really understand at this point like what the Sith situation is because like the galaxy has been in balance. The Jedi are the like peacekeeping organization, yeah. So it very much seems to me like I know there's always balance, but like you don't see what the dark side of the force is doing like during Young Jedi because again, it's a kids show
Hmm.
and you but like as an adult, I know that if there's this much light in the galaxy, there is
Also,
balance. So where is the
imbalance.
balance? So watching the Acolyte feels like a fun like exercise in balance. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm really excited to see what his backstory is and why. And like honestly, Master Saul seems too emotional for a Jedi. And so
No,
interested to
they
see
one his Padawan even like called him on it.
yeah, like why do you keep her hollow? But so I'm really interested to see like why he's so attached to Osha
Hmm.
because it seems like he's very attached to her.
Yes.
He can
What
still feel her.
what characters are you excited to learn more about? I don't think we have a winner of this episode because
Oh, there's
we're
no
getting to
winner.
know them all. If there is a winner, it's Pip. Come on.
I mean, Pip is
Pip
adorable.
wins.
Um, I guess I'm really interested to understand what actually happened
Hmm.
when they were growing up. And like you see the Padawan talk about fire, right? And then you learned, and that's after you learned that her family died in a fire.
Well, and you also see Osha have a
Not a Padawan,
flashback
sorry,
when
the
there's a
youngling.
fire on the ship.
Yeah,
And
so
they're
like
fixing it, so you see her have a flashback. So obviously fire is going to come in to play here.
and so that's where I'm like, I'm curious to see because they were both clearly force sensitive. And but why by the age of 8 were they not tapped for Jedi? You know what, for Jedi training. So I know you've seen it. I have not. But that's what I'm
Yes.
curious to learn is like how did they get to the age of 8 being force sensitive and not be tapped for training like
Yes.
that? So that's what I'm
At a
interested to
time of Jedi peace.
exactly like this is a time where Jedi rule the galaxy, right? Like they're not ruling, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they're still out and about. There's a lot of them.
They're
They're
growing, like
they're well
they're
respected.
actively recruiting without having to hide their numbers.
Yeah. So that's where I'm like, how did because I can infer that what probably happened is somehow this girl May, in her non understanding of the force, started a fire either on purpose or accidentally, and that's what killed because they said that's what killed their family.
Hmm.
And Osha was the only survivor, and that um Master Soul and Master the Indara are the ones that saved her. Does that mean that May is after Master Soul next? Like that's where I'm just and I
Yeah.
really want to know why Osha is not able to use the force at will. Like
Yeah.
even though she left the order, why is she having a hard time connecting to it?
Yeah, because Jod had an easy time connecting. the
I
force.
know. I'm like, why? Like where does that block come from? And is it
Yeah.
the reason she left the order?
Yeah. Well,
So
curious to see.
I know. Well, so you've seen it, and
I've
without
seen it.
any spoilers, like what episode are you excited to get to?
Because I binged them
Do
and
they
I
just blend?
everything blend because I watched it like it was a movie and my brain just like so I in my head I know what episode I'm excited for. Let me pull up the episode guide and I can do you a little better. Okay, so it's actually almost the end of the season.
Oh, so we have to get through the whole
Um,
season.
I think you will really like episode 7 because of what we learn in it.
Ah, thank you.
So,
But no, I am excited to watch the next episode. Um, which is sometimes not something I can say about a lot of shows that I watch. So like it is hard not to binge them, but because you said not to, I will watch them one at a time.
it's also one of those things that when we're doing a show like this and a podcast like this, our big thing is we really want the podcast to be for like first time Star Wars watchers and people revisiting and we're wanting to watch it chronologically. And my fear is that if we binge them, we
We'll
may
accidentally
accidentally
spoil.
say things that people aren't ready for because they're not there yet. And I don't want to
Yeah.
be the reason Star Wars is spoiled for someone.
Yeah.
And so like we mention things from like the movies and such. But when it comes to the shows, I feel like more people have seen the movies than the shows.
Yeah. Well, I feel like certain aspects of Star Wars are truly pop culture. Like
Yes.
I'll always say the very first piece of Star Wars that I learned about was everything that was being mocked in Spaceballs because
Yeah.
I saw Spaceballs before I really saw Star Wars and
Yeah.
understood it. So that's why it is nice for me to do these one at a time so that when we're speaking, like it's very I haven't seen this show, so it's like
Yeah, you don't
very
have to like watch yourself because there's times where I was like, "Oh, I can't say that yet." Like,
yeah. So I am very excited for number two. So until next time, we're not the droids you're looking for.
but we're the droids you're gonna get.